Okay, I think I have what I need to try to coat this table in concrete as quickly as possible. I have the table set up, and I have the place where I'm going to be mixing the concrete set up as well. Outside, because the dust, I have a utility knife to open the bag with. Then I have stir sticks and a stapler if I can't close it with what they provided. I have the amount of water that I'm going to need. And I have the cup to add twice as much of the concrete for safety. I have my respirator mask, eye goggles, pair of gloves. And when I add the concrete to the water, I will stir with that fork. Then, when it's somewhat stirred, I will come to this mixer, which I have tested as safe in the cup. I have surrounded it with a gallon trash bag to avoid it getting any more concrete on it than it absolutely has to. And that is what I will use to mix before going to the table, where I have a chair here. I'm probably going to want that closer. And a bucket with a pillow, aka a chair here. Then I have another chair with what I believe I will be using, this, to slide it across there. And what I think I might want to use, smaller one. I have a sponge, some water behind me if I need it. Popsicle sticks, because those are crazy useful all the time. Another spreader and a different kind of sponge on a stick. I may use this when feather finishing down to try to prevent it. I don't know what I'm doing. So let's see how quickly I can do it. I wonder if I can find an angle where I can time myself doing it. So a lot of this is not going to be seen because I have to do it outside, but I think the important part will be seen. You can just skip ahead or whatever. I'm timing myself. Oh, and if you just saw me and thought, has she lost 20 pounds since the first video about furniture? Yes, as of today I have. Thank you. Thank you for wondering that and asking. I feel so much better. My joints don't hurt as much. Okay, time to go. They repeatedly were like, you know what you should do? Stir it very well. You know what else you should do? Stir it very well. And while you're at it, oh yeah, you should stir this very well. It's not an exact quote from the directions, but it felt pretty much like that's what it said. Oh, and it said if it hardens before you're ready, do not add water. Stir it. So far, this feels like icing a cake, with the only exception being I've never had a cake this large to put icing on top of. So if icing a cake is like something you're pretty good at, I bet you got this. Did not use all the appropriate tools. This one specifically. But I think for what I want to do, it's a close enough approximation to a trowel. feeling pretty confident this is my first coat. Absolutely not my last. It's starting to harden enough that I don't think I'm going to have a lot more room to manipulate it into different places. But by dragging the blade across it over and over again, much like when icing a cake, it will help make it more smooth. Even though, as I said, this is my first coat of I don't know how many. I mean, that would have been cool if it was just like my first of one, right? But life isn't perfect. Probably could have stopped messing with this like a couple minutes ago. I guess I'm going to figure out a way to get it onto the sides that's going to be good enough. Okay, I get the feeling that a paint stick is going to be the way to get it onto the sides that's going to be good enough. And that will also be my first coat, or a quarter of one coat, right? Because I wasn't able to go around the whole table with this. Okay, well, so far I feel good about it, but I guess really so far I haven't run into any surprises based on what I'm trying to find out, which is how quickly can I coat this, how well can it then work as a table, and how profitable might it be? Oh, and how heavy? Not very. I learned that because the bag is 7 pounds. And it's like 100 and something ounces. This is a quarter cup. As part of why I was kind of ridiculous in making sure that I didn't have air in it, because it suggests you don't even, that you use all the product in one go, and also mentions like close it well so air doesn't get into it. Apparently that has something to do with why it does what it does. So if I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna use the same bag over and over and over again. So I really wanted to make sure it was closed very well. I don't know, I'm not supposed to add water, but man, the sides really seem They would love some water. I'm not supposed to use water because it weakens it. It's not structurally an issue, so after I get one-ish coat on, I might water it down. I'm not gonna start with that. Let's not try to change everything all at once. So. Everything I read about this, including the instructions on it and anything written about it, really emphasizes how quickly this is going to set up, and so how quickly you got to move. But of course, those people are talking about skim coating floors, and I have, you know, several square feet, maybe. Okay. Yeah, if this was a cake, I'd make another batch of icing, and I will do that soon. I'm gonna get a container of water. So I'll probably repurpose my bucket that was sit here in case of as a water bucket that I'll put outside to rinse myself and my utensils so that I'm not pouring concrete down the drain. I'll do that now, and I'll call this coat 1 done in 16 minutes. All right. Took me 5, maybe 6 minutes to fill the bucket with water. The sediment sinks to the bottom, and it'll be easy later on. Clean that utensil, get the others, or tool, whatever, get the others ready for the next round. I can walk out there and come back and do it all again whenever the table is ready for me. It's not dry yet because it needs a little longer to dry. So this is my opportunity to sit and think, or just sit. This is 30 minutes later. As you can see, it's drying, but it is not yet fully dried. It's so tempting to get a wet sponge just to smooth that over before it's completely dry. I did not manage to resist the temptation on a couple of spots that were still wet to rub my finger across it, and it knocked off the edges really well, and then I tried it on an area that was already dry, and that's going to need to be sanded. My fingers have no control over it. It's not a better idea to wait for this to dry. And the reason for that is because the longer concrete has to stay wet, the more strength it has when it's dry. So it's not uncommon to continually wet concrete for a while, or to cover it to make sure that the dry time is longer for structural integrity. So actually what I'm doing by not getting up and making another batch is trying to fuck around and find out how much structural integrity I can do without and still have a decent table. So I really want to sand this down with water and a sponge up to a point to smooth it out. I think that'd be cool. I'm not letting myself do that. And I really want to immediately go get more concrete ready to slow the dry time to make the structural integrity of this greater, and I'm resisting that. So I made a video to hold myself accountable for either doing that or deleting the video. And did a second coat. I did a lot of the things I told myself I wasn't gonna. I said I was gonna follow the instructions exactly, and I didn't. I did the second coat initially around the edge, primarily. That was my goal. And then I filled in where I saw spots. I'm seeing one already that I missed. See it? There it is. And then I used a sponge to do kind of a wet sand and smooth over, creating a bit of a slurry coat that seem to be really successful in covering up little spots. I don't feel guilty about it. Perhaps tomorrow I'll get a better idea of how good I can feel about this and what I'm thinking, because polyurethane can act as a good top coat for concrete. I'm thinking I might use one of my polyurethane stains. I have a couple or a few different stains and polyurethanes in one. Not just because they're, here's one, not just because it's got a top coat and I need that for a table, but also because these tables are brown and the contrast is, I don't dig it. So if I could see what it looks like to stain brown while I polyurethane this, I'd like to. I'm hopeful about that. I should call it a night. Tonight. Day 2, I put something with oil on it. I set something with oil on it down, and it's not sealed, so I regret that. But this is what it looks like having dried after the 2 coats. I feel very good about it. I'm going to make, I think, a larger batch to cover the top and the bottom, and then I have a second table over there. I think it's going to go well. I mixed twice as much as I had previously, and I did a coat in places where there were apparent needs for it on the top, and then mostly around the edge here. That's why you see the color difference. Then I moved down to the bottom, got a very thin coat on the surface of the bottom and a pretty thick coat around the edge. I'm going to wait for it to dry a little bit before I go in and do some sponging to help smooth it out. This time when I did this, I used my hands pretty freely in smoothing out the concrete, and I feel good about that. I need to check under the edges to make sure that that is sufficient, whatever sufficient means, and then I believe the concrete will wash off in the places where it touched a little bit. I went back when it dried for a few more minutes and did a wet sponge down of the tabletop and also the sides of the bottom, getting a good feel for when I can do that and have it work and when I should wait and when it's too late. I also cleaned the sides of all the legs. Hopefully that won't be too hard to get the residue off that I see as it dries. I have hope. I'm almost done with the top. I'm going to check underneath after everything's dry to see if there are places where I need to do little repairs. Maybe there's going to be a slurry coat needed. I can be hopeful. One more coat will be enough, and then a slurry coat maybe for the bottom as well. I'm gonna find out. This is fun because it's going so much more quickly than those 2 projects did, but because I really like finding things out. Like, I couldn't find anything to tell me if it's possible to skim coat concrete onto tables. There's plenty on countertops, but those don't move as often. Anyway, and I'm excited to see if this works, and if it doesn't, to have found out that it doesn't, rather than sit around and wonder. I'll never know. Now that I have covered this, I have made 2 cups. I did some more over there. I did the sponging. I'm feeling like I'm in a pretty good place with it, and it's late enough that I've been doing enough. I'm gonna change the lighting to make it relaxy time, and then I'm gonna get sparkling water and relax and stare at my tables, my almost tables, with joy, and my vanity and my dresser. So the first one that I started on working is nearly done. There are a few places still where I want to add a little more concrete. This one needs at least one more coat on both the top and the bottom, and then I guess it'll be time to stain them. I'm anxious about that part because I don't know how well it's going to work, how much it's going to absorb before it's coated. But so far, I'm really feeling quite good about how this is going. I need to stage those two. I cleaned up outside. Hopefully, I'll be able to stage outside because I'm running out of room. I brought these 2 side tables to my place. They had been in Kyle's garage, so they were $5 each. The length of them is pretty extreme, and then there's a shelf on this side, right? And that shelf goes to halfway, and then on the other side, there's just a back. So that means this whole section is hidden on both of them. There's no way to get back there, but it goes to like here. Isn't that crazy? What's in there? I gotta find out. There's one more coat of concrete everywhere. Very little here. I just did around the edges on the top and the bottom where parts were showing. I'm hopeful this will be the last coat that I need on either side, which will make for one less coat on the second one I started. And if I'm missing any places, I think I'm just going to move forward with polyurethane. I think it's about time. Man, and then I have this other project I'm working on that I'll go work on. It's been a while since these have dried, so I flipped one over. I'm going to scrape off or maybe get a razor blade to try to cut back some of the places where it's too pokey, or it's coming out too much, and I think it's going to break off on its own anyway. Then it'll be time to polyurethane. I switched to this tool, and it's working way better. Scrapey noises. There we go. It's working way better. Then I'll vacuum it all up. Alright, flipped them over, scraped them off. That went really well. I'm considering doing it on the rougher sections around, and I just don't want to get to a place where I'm obsessed with it being perfect, because it's concrete. It's not going to be perfect. But I'll give myself a few minutes, probably literally. I'll set a timer, 2.5 minutes per table with the focus on the space around, or focus on the edges, because I don't see any major issues in the middle. There's this one section that's questionable. I spent less than 2.5 minutes on both in total. Now I have this water-based stain and poly in the color Mission Oak. I'm gonna put a coat on top of both tables and see how it goes. I think I'll take pictures of them pre-stained so I can get an idea of like what's happening in different areas based on how high up the edges are or how low. Coats haven't fully dried yet, but I think they look pretty good. Strangely, the way it looks like the brush strokes are, that's very little of that is actually brush strokes. That's just from the way the concrete was initially put on. And I'll wait for it to dry. See, there are a couple places where the darkness difference is pretty extreme. But on the whole, is that a light or no, that's a gray streak. On the whole, I think it's going very well, and we'll see what it looks like in a little while when it dries. I'm not sure what my next plan is. I might go ahead and do a matte coat polyurethane on top of it. I might do another stain, but I may not want to do that. I think it looks pretty good. On this, I don't like how streaky it looks, so to an extent that I don't think I can bear it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a rag, and I'm going to put another coat of polyurethane just on the top shelf in a smoother way that will hopefully avoid all these streak marks, which I do think, after all, are from the... I forgot what the thing is you put paint on with. The brush I was using. And then I'm going to call it a day because I forgot the word for brush. I don't know, man. I think I might do a matte coverage of it. It's not coming across on video the same way that it's looking in person. It looks better in person than I'm seeing it on video. But maybe it would be an improvement if it was in a matte finish instead of a satin finish. But I don't know. So I got time to think on it. Okay, matte coat on, perhaps not completely dry. I also washed the legs again and went over it with a filler to cover any of the spots that had been sanded off or scratched up. I think it's looking pretty good. Now I'm gonna test the strength. Whew. Nothing. Got anything? Oh no, it's from my shoe. Okay. Well, let's see. What do we got? Cut up. What's the strength of it here? There we go. Found a minor chip. Okay, well, this is made of magic, so...